Coach, final practice before leaving out on the road. How'd you feel your team performed? Just were they into today's practice?
I thought they were. It was lots of. We had quite a few one-on-one battles. Today the theme was neutral zone regroup and transition to offense in the neutral zone. So we watched a few clips from the last game, what we can improve and what we can do better and how we can play faster. And that was the theme today. So they were pretty sharp. They were trying to run the routes, and it's all about running routes and creating smarter and faster decision on the ice, but also understanding what the other players are trying to do as well. So being in sync, basically, I like the practice.
Is it a little different for you from a coaching perspective when you're going out for 3 on the road, you're playing against a divisional opponent, and then you're playing 2 games against a team from the East? Is it similar to the NHL in that regard, where there's a different mentality in terms of the way they play the game over in the East versus the way they play here in the West?
Well, we don't play the East a whole lot, but most of the teams, I don't think, and I might be wrong, I'm not sure there, but we use pretty much the same systems, or basically the same systems as the Jets, and I think most of the teams would do it that way. When we play against Rockford, you have some kind of a version of how Chicago plays. Same thing with Grand Rapids and Detroit. So yeah, I'd say it would look pretty much the same. Where in the West, there's a lot of puck battles, and in the East, there's a lot of speed.
David Gustafson was loaned to you guys before he went to the World Juniors. We don't know yet, of course, if he'll end up here or if like Ville, he'll go back overseas. But given how David has done in a role as a 19-year-old, would the idea of him coming down here excite you as a coach to work with?
He's not here right now. I don't know what they're going to do, what the Jets are going to do. If he comes here, it's going to be exciting for sure to work with a young man like him. But I don't know what's going to happen.
No, for sure. I just meant in terms of a guy like that's shown such role-playing skills at the NHL level right at 19. Does the idea of playing with someone with already such a responsible foundation kind of if that were to happen, right, be something that would be good experience?
Well, for sure, because we saw him in Belleville, and we could tell he's a strong man. He's still very young, but he could understand the systems pretty quick. And I think that's one of the main reasons why he's stuck with the Jets for so long, because he understands the system and his collective game is really solid. So that's exciting for the organization to know a guy like him can play and can contribute against players of his own age at the World Juniors. So he's an exciting piece of our future.
I feel like sometimes with prospect evaluation, some people can be pretty quick to write off a player's offensive abilities. Do you think that it's kind of a myth with offense and skill that you either have it or you don't? Like that the smart players can develop it if they put their mind to it?
That's a real good question, because I remember Josh Morrissey being here his first 2 years. I was reading a lot of stuff that people weren't sure, right. And then he kept working hard. But the latest guy that has done it is Jensen Harkins. Nobody could see it coming, but he had the skills when we drafted him, and we drafted him as a center, and he played the wing, and then he played center, and all of a sudden the first thing you know is he's playing with the Jets, and he's doing well. So our goal is to give the players 3 years. Once they start playing pro, we give them 3 years to evaluate them. And some guys, you see it in the first year, the Kyle Connor and Jack Roslovic. And some guys, it takes a little bit longer. And there's no bad or right answers here. And the development is very personal, and it's independent from each individual. So, you have 3 years. That's a window that we have, and sometimes 4 years. But that's the window that we have. If the player becomes an NHL player after the first year or the first month, well, good for him, good for the organization. But sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and there's nothing wrong with that.
One last question about that. So by that same token, in those 3 years, would you also say that there's leeway for a player, say he makes it, then he needs to go back down? Would you say that that's fair as well? Like, there's leeway given in those 3 years that even if they go up but need some time back down, that's okay?
Absolutely, why not? And same thing with, again, I'm going back to Jensen Harkins. He went in the East Coast. So we can, it's not, playing minutes and playing games and playing at a certain level requires time, and it requires an understanding on what it takes to play at the professional level and playing up to our culture and our identity. So sometimes, playing more minutes in the American League level than less minutes in the NHL will benefit you in the long term, and that's how we see it.
One more final question for me. Seth Griffith got the O2 win the other night. He's been a huge force for you guys. I wanted to ask you from a hockey perspective. I know Seth is a leader as well, respected. Yeah. How much those quote-unquote quad A guys help your team, whether it's stability or performance on the ice?
Well, it's all about, so we're looking for the right people, right? We're looking for good people and good leaders, and then we want 25 of them, and that's what we're looking for. Having said that, when you jump on the ice, you have a role and you have a job to do. And Seth is not only a great person, he's fun to be around, but he does his job. His job is to create offense. His job is to score big goals when we need them, and when he does that, then he's fulfilling his responsibility. It's a tough one to be. Everybody wants to be a goal scorer, but when you have that responsibility and you have to do it consistently, you have to be really good. And Seth has been doing that for us. That's why we got him in the trade, and that's why we signed him. And he's doing it. So, and on top of that, he's a good person. So he's a big piece of our success.